Even hear if these are on or not.
Ryan's still on WhatsApp. Is that
No, I don't. What kind of papers?
Facebook?
No, he can't do that. No. Yeah, I mean, but it's a public forum. And as Jeremy's going to turn around and say that it's legal. That's the problem.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
I don't know. Are they, wait.
What?
Okay, I see.
What?
I'll tell you where be here after the over.
Well,
you would know, like me.
I don't know. Yeah, you and I are new. I don't know. Everything is new to me. I assume not. Like last week or last week at the open. Oh no, what's it?
So is this not
Oh, okay. It's actually a walk meeting here.
I thought that was odd, by the way. I mean, it's easier to schedule that way, to be honest. And if we had to push it, it would have been easier. Some people behind schedule. I mean, I know that Fox is here, but I was actually discussing the issue of the technology in our room earlier today with St. Ashland. So it's really cool. They're able to plug in directly into the system. Here, our AV equipment is so outdated. We can't even do that. So that's another.
I was going to ask Patty, but I didn't catch her. Is this being taped for rebroadcast, or
Yes, definitely.
but it's not being done live? Like
We'll be live on the CDTV
Are you guys ready to go?
It won't be 60 days.
The video, right.
However, these folks will live stream it on Facebook as well. Externally.
Is the video production under your department?
George, you ready? Okay, everyone. Everyone, please, we're going to begin our meeting. Remember, there is 3 overflow rooms, one behind us, one in the hallway as well, okay?
Oh.
Yeah, the microphone is on. We just need to get some more quiet in the area. Does this sound better? The microphone's on.
Hello? Yeah, I don't hear any.
Very good.
Try again. Testing, 1, 2. Hello?
Yeah.
They're on.
Here, Mike, try mine.
Testing, 1, 2, testing.
Try mine.
It's far away.
Well, I need that,
Is
so.
that- Oh, I know, I was gonna have you try mine now.
Testing? Is that better? Testing.
Okay, go
Yeah,
ahead.
this is no good though.
They lowered your mic.
Going to be the first time. All right.
Turn one off so there's no interference.
You're going to need one too.
Yeah, we'll pass it back.
All right, everybody, please remember that there is overflow rooms. We appreciate everybody showing up. We know this is an important topic, but please be respectful. We will not tolerate any outbursts. We will not tolerate anybody encroaching on that side of the area as well. Please respect your neighbors that are here. And if anybody sees somebody that would like to have a seat and you kindly feel that you could stand, it might be a good idea to let them have a seat as well. There is rooms behind us and there's rooms in the front. Okay? So I call to order the special meeting scheduled in the City Council chambers for Tuesday, June 7th at 6:30 p.m. The purpose of this meeting of the 34th City Council is to adopt the fiscal year 2023 budget and the 2022 tax rate. Mr. Clerk, would you please call the roll for tonight's special meeting?
Yes, Councilmember Hamud,
Here.
Councilmember Abraham,
Here.
Councilmember Paris,
Here.
Councilmember El Sawafi,
Here.
Councilmember Herrick,
Here.
Councilmember Burns,
Here.
Council President Sereni.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Okay, the mayor delivered the proposed budget beginning March 29th of this year. The Dearborn City Council had several meetings. We counted over 12. The city departments reviewed the budget. We also had hundreds of requests for information. We also fulfilled our public hearing requirement with a public hearing held on June 2nd, 2022. Therefore, tonight we are here to vote on the adoption of the proposed budget and tax rate. At this time, I'd like to call our Director of Finance, Mr. Michael Kennedy, who will bring up highlights for the proposed 22-23 budget and the 22 city tax rates. Mr. Kennedy.
Good evening, Council President, council members, members of the audience. I'm going to go over the executive summary for the proposed budget. It's on page 1 of your packet. Top of the paper has a green area printed. Second column in from the left is the proposed budget showing revenues for the general fund financing sources are $128,525,630. Expenditures for the general fund, other financing uses, is $130,460,041. That creates a use of fund balance of $1,934,411. Moving down to the middle section in red for the combined all funds, revenues are reported at $354,974,121. Expenditures being $342,684,197. Showing a contribution back to the fund balance of $12,289,924. The final section I'm going to talk about is on the bottom. It's the blue section labeled tax rate. You'll see that again in the proposed budget 2023 column, the general fund millage is proposed at 15.000. Garbage and rubbish millage is 1.91. Library millage of 1.54. Debt millage CSO 2004 is 3.82. And the debt millage CSO 2018 is 0.43. This totals 22.70 on a millage rate versus an adopted budget for fiscal year 22 of 26.67, or a decrease of 3.97 mils.
Thank you, Mr. Kennedy. Sorry, thank you, Mr. Kennedy. At this time, I'd like, Mr. Kennedy, if you just want to stay up here just for a second. The order of the meeting, what we're going to do is have, if council has any questions for the presentation from Mr. Kennedy, just to make sure we're all clear. At that time, what I'm going to do is ask the members to abstain from making their comments so we hear all the public comments. So those that are in the public, please fill out a card, and I believe they're on this side, and turn it in. They're floating the room too. Yeah. And then we will take your comments. I do want the residents to know that because of the timing, we also have a council meeting directly after this. We will adhere to the 3-minute strict rule because of the fact that we have another meeting to conduct after this one as well. So at this time, I'd like to make sure if there's no comments from my colleagues for Mr. Kennedy, we will then open it up to public comment. Any comments?
Oh, I'm good.
Councilman Abraham.
Thank you, Council President. My microphone is working. Mr. Kennedy, thank you for your team, your hard work during this budget. I know it hasn't been an easy process. And Mayor, thank you for your input and diligence during your first term of office, or first year in office in your first budget. I'm going to, I guess, jump right to the reason I think so many of you might be here tonight, and that's to talk about healthcare. My colleagues and I have taken an extreme amount of time and energy to respond to the overwhelming comments related to the proposed changes in plan design, specifically for the post-employment healthcare fund and the cost of the fund. My colleague directly on my left, Councilman El-Sawafi, and I had long discussions, and with his leadership, I don't want to steal your thunder, but I'm going to introduce what was, I think, an excellent change to what's in front of us today. And besides all the numbers and the balance sheets and the income statements and the department budgets, officially what the council has to vote on is our 2022-2023 budget resolution, which is the document that stays in the record and the files, along with the numbers that the administration will adhere to throughout the fiscal year. Two important changes related to healthcare since the public hearing last Thursday, I believe, was actually entering into the record the proposed healthcare plans. The mayor and his team has added that to the resolution to make sure that what we have been talking about will be bound as part of this resolution. And probably second, but more importantly, addressing a lot of concerns and comments about retirees having a voice, about communication, and about participation in solving the problem with funding post-employment healthcare. And with that, what we have in front of us today that was not officially in front of us on Thursday is an additional paragraph creating a retiree healthcare benefit committee. This was done in conjunction with the council and the mayor and his team. There will be, I'm not going to go through all the details. I'll save that for some of my colleagues.
Yeah, Mr. Councilman, I apologize. Yeah, I'd rather you not go through the details. I was asking if there was any questions for Mr. Kennedy.
Okay.
So the residents can have an
Sure.
opportunity to speak,
Well,
but I give you the latitude to.
Yeah, I want them to know that we've addressed something
That's
before we
fair.
get a lot of questions.
That's
on it.
fair. That's what I was going to
So
do.
there was
Go
going to
ahead.
be a committee, there will be a committee of 6 members. And they will be allowed about 2.5 months of time to deliberate and prepare alternate solutions and deliver proposals back to the mayor and the council. And I think that is a good place to start. So thank you, Council President. I just wanted people to be, some of the people are aware, some of them aren't, but I think that is a huge step in the right direction to create a partnership between the retirees, the administration, and the council during these budget deliberations. Thank you.
Okay, so is there anybody from council that has a question for Mr. Kennedy? Okay, so at this time, Councilman Abraham, I appreciate you bringing the information up regarding the changes that, as you indicated factually, that it was not proposed on Thursdays and it was worked out through the council in our office and through the administration and as well as the legal department. So just to sum it up, as you had indicated, but to make it more formalized, the mayor shall appoint five members, without council confirmation. Yeah, we don't need five mayors, right? The city council shall appoint one. The sixth member will be a resident of the city of Dearborn. The six members must be city retirees, one from the police department, one from the fire, one from general police dispatch. And three of the six members must be city active, eligible to receive retiree health care benefits from the police department, the fire department, and one from our general employees and dispatch. The important point is the committee shall dissolve on its own at the close of business day at September 1st, 2022, whether or not a counter proposal was submitted to committee, to the administration or the council. So what we're trying to do in our conversation with the mayor is to make sure that we give the retirees an opportunity to see that if they can find a savings of close to $6 million in our budget, and that's where we're at right now. So that is the scope of the committee. There is no other scope of it. That's the exact provisions that we put in our resolve clause. So, and I do appreciate the fact that the councilman had brought that up, that we need to make sure that the residents, many of you were not aware of that. So at this time, we have a list of cards. I'm going to begin. If you did not fill out a card, please, they are circulating the room. Please grab one and we'll pick them up. And please remember, when you come up, state your name and address for the record, and then go ahead and you can begin. The clerk will give you 3 minutes time limit. It's going to be strictly adhered to. And you will, Mr. Clerk, would you be able to give him a 10-second warning?
Sure.
Okay, we're going to give you a 10-second warning not to cut you off in the middle. I do want to remind the public that we do not and will not allow any personal direct attacks at council members. If you have your opinion, I know there's plenty of ways where you could share it. So we expect you to be respectful and make it something that is constructive that the council can consider before placing their votes on the record. Okay? So at this time, the first speaker would be Dr. Ali Berry. Okay.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you, Mr. Council President. First of all, I want to thank you for the opportunity to allow me to speak on behalf of the Dearborn Community Council today. Also, this is my first time speaking to this body, the newly elected body, having now Ken, Mustafa, and Kamal on it. But as you guys know, and I want the public also to know, that our group has been working with this council and the previous council pre-pandemic on a problem we have in the city, and that's our tax millage. And so this is kind of a follow-up to it. And I know the room is filled with many, many, many great residents or former residents of our city and city employees. And it's so wonderful to see everybody here. And I'm hoping that every time we can have a meeting, you guys can have this many people here. It would be great. I also want to welcome our new mayor and thank you for also proposing the budget that you've worked hard on. So when I'm here, I think a lot of people think of the Dearborn Community Council and they think we just want to arbitrarily lower people's taxes. And that's not true. What we want to do is we want to sustain our city for our children so they can stay in it and benefit in it the way we all did. And I know this council has a lot of hard work to do. And I know that you guys do it pretty much for very little. So thank you. Thank you for working hard on behalf of the residents. I think we're all residents here. We're all either employees or former employees of the city. We're like multiple parts of a body pulling at the body, but we're all trying to get to the same place. We want to sustain our city. And so I want to just be very honest with my fellow residents, and that's why I'm looking at you guys. Okay, our city millage is just not sustainable. We've lost residents, we've lost in numbers and in quality. So I know everybody thinks about it from their perspective, but we have to start thinking as a collective. Our city millage is much higher than any surrounding city's millage. We've come here many times, spoken to city council, and we told them, you're gonna get to a point where the residents are gonna vote down every millage and your hands are gonna be tied and you're gonna have a barrage of people here, and here you are. And some people said, no, it won't happen. We can't cut services. We can't cut tax rates. Well, yes, you can, because other municipalities have. We need to just get to the average, to around the average. How we get there, we all have to work together. I sympathize with the library staff. I sympathize with our retirees, our hardworking city employees that have benefited us so much. I'm a longtime resident of Dearborn, and I'm successful because of you guys.
15-second warning.
And we want our city to stay successful. So I want to, though, bring attention to something. During the elections, all these flyers we have, each and every one of you, including the mayor, promised to cut taxes and to maintain city services.
Has expired.
Yes, let me continue 1 second because I did say hello to everybody. I just want to say one thing. All you're proposing to us is a 0.15 millage decrease. Everything was voted on by the residents. So please, this is the residents' will. It's the residents' will. It's not the mayor's will. It's not the council's will.
Thank you, Dr. Berry. Thank you, Dr. Berry. Okay. All right, next we have Dr. Khaled Kayed.
Good evening, Council President,
Good evening.
Council members, Mayor Hamoud. First of all, I want to thank you because I know what you've been going through. You started with a big mess and it took long hours. And I was here to start by saying that the mayor did his homework and provided you a pathway for a balanced budget. You had two options. Option number one, you approve that budget. Option number two, you come up with an alternative that will lead to a path of a balanced budget. But after hearing Councilman Ibrahim, this is what it's all about. It's cooperation, it's collaboration, and it's coming and doing the right thing. Doing the right thing for the retirees, who we respect very much. As a child growing in Dearborn, I saw what they did. But at the same time, you see all these people showing up. They are struggling to keep their homes. You cannot operate year in and year out by spending more than what's coming in. Something's got to give. And you cannot rely that eventually you're going to go to the residents and say, we want more taxes. Because I can assure you, no more taxes. All of you, as Dr. Ali mentioned, were elected because we trusted you in your message. Your message said, we will do the right thing. And I think with this committee, that is a sign of the right thing. But you're not done yet. No more taxes. We will fight it. And we expect more than just no more taxes. We expect less taxes. Because in 4 years, we will come just like we came tonight, and we will vote you out, each and every one of you. Thank you.
All right, next we have Mr. Jason Sagalis. I think they're working.
Good evening, Council, Council President, Council members, Mr. Mayor. I'm Jason Scazalis, the President of the Dearborn Police Lieutenants and Sergeants Association. I've spoken to many of you and many other people about the change in retiree health care that's proposed by this budget. I know a huge concern, and it's a legitimate concern, is that not all the voices that are affected by this have been heard. So I understand that this task force was formed to give us a voice and give the retirees a voice. All I ask to this council is that you ensure this task force that was formed, if it passes, receives all the tools and the resources necessary to be successful. It's not smoke and mirrors. It's truly a task force to come up with a resolution for this problem. I ask you, Mr. Mayor, that this task force is formed and they come up with a resolution. What I ask of you is to assist all the collective bargaining units that will affect, so we can memorialize this healthcare and it's never changed again in the future. As you see around us, everyone is affected. We have spouses, we have widows, we have children. We just ask that we work together and that our voices be heard. And I appreciate the fact that this is an option and this task force is going to be formed. Just remember, we the people, including everyone here, we did not cause this problem. Our elected officials and their appointees caused this problem. Thank you.
Okay, next we have Mr. Osama Sablani.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. I own a business in Dearborn. And I know many of the people in here, either they're employees or they own their own businesses. And I know some of you have worked for the city or you own your businesses as well, and now you're working for the city part-time as city council members. Let me tell you, when the situation is very tough economically, we all have to work together in order to make it work. It's not just an option for us to keep spending money, because me as a business owner, I can tell you my experience in this. I used to pay for me and my wife in insurance, Blue Cross Blue Shield, $780 15 years ago. 5 years ago, I started paying $2,500 and less benefits. So things have changed, and we cannot continue on doing the same thing when things have changed. So I cannot increase my salary because my business is not making the money. It's not like you have a budget and you have to live within your budget. So I understand that sometimes you have to cut, and sometimes when you cut, you hurt, but it's better to cut and hurt than to destroy the city and bring down the services and also the people with it. So I understand that there are some sacrifices that have to be made. Work together instead of bickering and instead of fighting. And I understand the retiree and the police officers and the firefighters that they have given their life, time in order to serve our community. But we need the other officers that they are working today and the firefighters that they are working today also to get the benefit and to continue to fight and to continue to work for our community. So please work together, try to make it happen. Sometimes we need to get hurt in order for things to get better. Let's do it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Eric Cullum is next.
Evening, Council, Mayor.
Good evening.
I sat through many of the budget stuff, so I guess I have a couple of questions, and I know last time I'm supposed to direct them to the council, so I'll do that.
Okay.
It was never, as far as I can understand from the budget, it was never the council's intent to fully fund OPEB. Supposedly,
Is
as
that
I
a question?
understand.
Is that one of the questions?
Yes. As I understand, the budget was showing basically $16 million for OPEB. The city, the proposal is to pay $6 million, and then with these changes in our healthcare, to drop it anywhere between 6.2 and $6.6 million. So again, there was never an intent in the budget to fully fund the OPEB. I wonder though, with this new this new commission, if it's only going to be 6 members or 6 members plus 6 members from the active and retirees. Is there 12 members? Because
No, 12 minutes. There's not going to be 12 members.
Okay, so
There's going to be 6 members. Yeah,
that's it.
that's correct.
Okay. Well, 3 of them, 1 retiree police, 1 retiree fire, 1 retiree general employees. On the other side, 1 active police, 1 active fire, and 1 active general. That's 6.
That's correct.
And then the mayor appoints somebody. That's 7.
He's appointing authority of 5 of those 6. The council's appointing 1 of them. So it's a total of 6.
I guess I'm back to being confused because the 3 and 3 is 6. I went to Dearborn School, so.
Let me, Council President.
No, let him finish because I wanted to address his fully funded aspect.
There are going to be 6 members on the commission. The things you delineated are the criteria. The mayor appoints 5 with those criteria. The council appoints 1 with the criteria you outlined.
Of the 6?
Only 6.
No, but I'm saying a council appoints 1 of the 6.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And as Jason asked, and I would ask the same question, are all the resources, that being employees, whatever's necessary to get this commission to be able to do their job properly, they will be furnished to the commission?
Yes, the commission will be working with myself and my senior leadership.
Okay. And the other thing I noticed it says that the savings must be at least $6 million. If it's not, and a report is brought before the council, is this something council will consider or not because it's not $6 million?
You're almost done. So you got is that your last question? I'm going to address both of them for you.
Last question, for now.
Okay. So Mr. Cullum, I think, as you know, I'm the one that seeked you out to call you last time when I sat on this council after bonding, which so residents know is borrowing money to put into funds for the retiree health care. Do you recall that conversation?
Yes.
Right. I'm the one that called you and said, after borrowing money, they want to then short the OPEB obligation. The mayor has been on record, he can speak for himself, but the city has shorted it many times. It was not my intent, and you asked me that specifically. I believe in fiscal responsibility, and I believe as one of 7 members and as the leader of the council, that we will fund the required payments because as you have well aware, the fact that we didn't fund put us in this problem today. And we all are aware of that. So I think that it's not correct. We intended, in fact, I did intended to fully fund. You asked me that specific question early on, and I do appreciate you coming to all the meetings. Almost all of them, if not all of them. But yes, in my opinion, I would not vote for a budget that doesn't fund the retiree healthcare the way it's supposed to be by the actuary. So that's where I stand, and I think most of my colleagues do too. In the past, that wasn't the case. That's why I called you. And I don't believe in borrowing money to go ahead and pay what we should have paid in the past. So, and we can get in, you know the history of where City of Dearborn was in retiree healthcare, right? Just so everybody knows, we were 97th out of 100 in municipalities in returns, right? That's documented and in the minutes. This council in the past, at the end of this council, the past council at the end made a change to a new retirement system that changed a lot of things that did increase that. So we are going in the right direction now. We did have an issue where there was a lot of money left on the table. Just in the minutes of our retiree healthcare system, they indicated that period of time, the city did not gain $50 million that they should have. We wouldn't be in that position today. And as you correctly say, we're not blaming anybody for the past, but we have to fix it for the future. So for your first question, I would not support a budget, like I told you before, that does not fully fund the ARC, which is the retiree healthcare. So the second question you had was if this council was presented with an alternative that was short of the $6 million, I can tell you, for me, it would be a deliberation. I can't speak for my colleagues, but yes, we would look at it at that time. And I am fully confident that we will look at what was the proposal and if it saves the money and to what veracity it does. But that's what this body's for. You need 7, there's 7 of us. There's got to be 4 of us to agree. So I have full effect that we would do that. Does that answer your 2 questions?
It answers my 2 questions, but kind of what you're saying by the first answer is that you intended to fully fund OPEB. That is what you said, correct, Councilman?
Yes.
So fully funded at the mayor's proposal budget of 6.1 or fully funded at the 16 million, which is the ARC?
Fully funding it. The ARC is adjusted by the budget. We can't fund it until we have proposed the budget. So I would fund it based on the budget.
The mayor's proposal?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
And last thing, since I haven't run out of time.
You have, Mr. Collins, I apologize, but there's many people waiting. Your point is taken, but thank you so much.
Okay.
All right, there is a Mark Henderson, I believe. Mark Henderson.
Good evening. Mark Henderson, 1563 Walnut, Dearborn. I was here on last Tuesday night, and I just want to reiterate that many of the employees are retired employees that are in the gallery tonight. I worked with at some point in the game, and from the time I was hired in 79 to the day I walked out in 2010, we all did our job to the residents and the city, and we were very loyal at the time. And so by cutting out of our benefits when we're most vulnerable would be just a bad thing. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Henderson. Appreciate it. Next, we have Mr. Jeff Lentz. Not sure if he's in the room.
That guy needs to, that's probably a fire hazard to be sitting.
Yeah, he's trying to address it.
Yes, sir. Go ahead. Mr. Lentz, go
Council
ahead.
President, council members, mayor, corporate counsel. My name is Jeff Lentz. I'm the president of the Dearborn Firefighters Association, IFF Local 412. I've lived in the city for 43 years. My family has served this city and protected this city for over 55 years. And I myself have worked for the city for 20 plus years. The firefighters, the Dearborn firefighters, completely and adamantly disagree with not fully funding retiree health care, or what we call OPEB, and also not fully funding Chapter 23 pension benefits. That being said, our union will actively participate in this committee if given the chance. We believe that the retirees and all vested parties need a chance to meet and discuss and look at different options. And possibly we will come to some type of understanding and come up with some better plans than what has been presented. That is with the understanding that our appointed representative is approved by the elected representatives of the Dearborn firefighters, who are elected to represent the active employees here as Dearborn firefighters. We will actively participate and actively look for different solutions. Our retired members have bargained and given away multiple different types of benefits to continue their healthcare coverage into retirement. And in retirement, those retired brothers and sisters, which have dedicated their entire adult life, sometimes many, many decades, serving the citizens of this city, they now suffer from cancer, chronic illnesses, post-traumatic stress disorders. My father alone committed suicide, who was retired from this department in 2006 on February 27th, 2022. I think partly because of the things that he did since 1969 all the way through 2006, protecting the citizens of the city. We cannot change or take away these healthcare, so I applaud you for taking steps to make sure this healthcare is given, but I do think we can do better than what was proposed. So that being said, I do support the current tax rates because that makes our city safe. It makes a place where I want to raise my family. I live here, I work here, and I pay my taxes here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Lentz. All right, just for members sitting in the middle of the floor, please, you need to sit in a chair or find a spot where you can stand. We don't want to cause an issue where there's nowhere to get through. So please find a seat. There is overflow rooms behind us and next door. So we can't have you sitting on the floor. Okay, next we have Mr. William Warden. Mr. William Warden. Okay, yes, thank you.
Oh, everybody, council, and mayor, and everybody. The sheet that I wrote out, I thought was to get a hold of me at my house.
Okay.
I didn't have anything to speak about tonight.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Ward. We will definitely get on file.
Okay.
We'll let them know. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Mr. Ward. Appreciate it. Mr. Willad Fadama. Woody, yep.
I like with that.
Me too. That's why I called
Not me.
it. I apologize.
No, you're okay. Council President, Mayor, everybody here, thank you very much for your service. And I am agree with everybody they are saying. I'm not going to repeat what they are saying, but I like what Mr. Jason said. The problem, we not cause the problem. If you are, how the government before you. We need the tax is reduced. We are seeing everything is going up. The families, they are suffering. If you go to store, you buy something for $5, right now it's $10. The gas, you see it, it's going up like a crazy. We cannot afford taxes and prices up. We need something to work for the city, for our, like I live on 4828 Chauvin, but all of us have address for our houses. But in the end, this city is our house, all of us. We have to take care of it. We don't need anybody to get sovereign from our police or from anyone serve the city. But we need to work for our citizens and for the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dama. Okay, next we have MD Alham. MD Alham, A-L-A-M. They could be an overflow room?
Yes.
Okay, well, we'll go to the next, we'll come right back to it. So it's MD, it was abbreviated MD Alam. Okay. Mr. Brian Stone?
Let's talk about the magic moment. The magic moment that you guys come up with a solution that lets you vote for a budget that you know is wrong. You came up with a solution that isn't a solution. 5 mayoral appointees for a commission of 6 to discover how to get the $6 million that you know this budget is not sound without. And the most important thing that we all know is that the mayor has spent millions in new dollars. He's created new departments, new positions, which you have approved this year. And now you're asking these men and women not only to shoulder the burden of your costs that you have put for this city, but you're also asking them now to do your job. Think about that.
Mr. Stone, we can hear you. You have a mic. I'm going to give you the opportunity.
I'm sorry, I was in the Navy.
No, I understand.
They teach us how to speak very loudly in
Okay,
boot camp.
well, in the Navy, they do have microphones because I know my brother's commanding a warship.
Oh, my apologies.
I hope you respect the floor, please.
They need to hear us over the ocean.
Continue.
You know, it gets real loud out there.
Mr. Stone, please.
I
continue.
appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Stone.
Each of you is paid $15,000 a year by us, the taxpayers, to come up with these solutions. And this budget proposal amounts to an abject failure of your responsibility to do your jobs. That's what I feel. And let me tell you something else. Every single one of you went up here and went in front of us as voters and said that you would support our police and firefighters. Every single one of you said that. I went back and looked at your campaign literature. Every single one. And here you are in your first year in your new term, you're cutting a benefit for them in order to pay for not a tax cut, because there are many proposals where we can all have a tax cut, but more tax cuts. So it's not a question of whether we're going to get a tax cut. It's about how much. And I'm seeing people that write $2,300 checks to candidates for public office coming up here and speaking and talking about how we're losing residents in the city. Well, guess what? There was a census. We're growing in Dearborn. And it's time that we looked at facts. These guys can't pay $2,300 a candidate. They might give you $25 if you're nice. But you know what? They worked for the city. They sacrificed for the city. They ran into burning buildings and towards gunfire for this city. And we owe them better than to ask them to do the job we sent you in this city council chambers to do for us. Thank you.
Okay, did we find MD Alam? Okay. I think the CO is out there. If we do find her, please let me know and then we'll address her. I'm going to skip from there. There is a comment by Mr. Rick Joint. I'm not sure if that's just a comment or they'd like to speak to the comment. Rick Joint? Okay. There's also another comment from Marlene Wayne. Not sure if there is a comment. Marilyn Wayne? Okay. Thank you, ma'am. I did receive your card. I wasn't sure if you wanted to speak on the behalf, so if you'd like to go ahead.
Council President. Yes, Joint is coming in right now.
Okay, we'll have him. Okay. Mr. Joint, we're going to take you right after. Go ahead, ma'am. I apologize.
I wasn't originally going to speak. However, so I'm Marilyn Wayne. I'm a Dearborn resident. I live at 210 Claremont, and I'm a voter. I retired from the finance department. I just had a look at the handout, and it shows that we would have a maximum of $6,600 a year. Well, we don't get COLA. You know, for Medicare, we pay, about $2,000 a year. $6,600 a year is just really exorbitant when we've not been paying anywhere near that in the past. So I respectfully ask that council reject changes to retiree health care. Back in, I don't remember if it was 2001 or 2002, the finance director did send a letter to the retirees saying that there was going to be an increase in copays. And the retirees went to the mayor, and the mayor directed the finance director to change that back, because we were basically told that whatever contract you retired under, that's what you would have. Those were the benefits that you would have going forward. And that's why many of us stayed. Also, you know, the pay at the city has not been in line with private industry. As a CPA, I could have made a lot more in private industry, but I basically stayed for the benefits. So I'd like you to keep that in mind. And like I said, I respectfully ask that you reject increases for retiree health care. And I respectfully ask that you also look for other means of reducing the deficit. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Wayne. Mr. Rick Joint, thank you for coming in from the overflow room.
Mr. Mayor, good evening. Esteemed council members. It's hard for me to stomach as a city resident that the shortfall financially that this city has been ignored by previous administrations of mayors and council people. It's my understanding that the mayor and the council are supposed to work together and come up with a budget that fits all the needs for everybody in the city. This idea of paying for health care for retirees, that's another one that's hard for me to swallow. Health care was a negotiated item that I received upon my retirement from the police department. And it seems like it's being pulled away from me now. So if I want health care, I'll have to pay for it myself. I'm a Medicare recipient. Unfortunately, I'm at that age, I have to pay for my Medicare every month, just like anybody else in this room that's on Medicare. And then to take the dollar amount, Mr. Mayor, that you want to put on us as retirees to help you recover from a financial crisis that was dumped in your lap upon you being elected, that's not fair to us. How much money is the city going to save if your proposed budget of making the retirees pay for their health care? how much of a savings will the city see? How much of the perks that the city distributes, cars for people to drive to and from their residence to work for you and to the city of Dearborn, gas cards with gas prices approaching $6 a gallon, free pool tags for city residents, great ideas, but not really the right time to do that. And what was done with the money that was supposed to be put aside for retiree health care over all the years that you weren't here, obviously, but where did all that money go? That's it I got. That's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Joint. Mr. Dean Grinch? Creech?
He's in the outside.
Okay. Yeah, Mr. All right, thank you.
Evening, Mayor and Council. Sorry about the delay getting here. I was at the little kids' table out in the overflow area. Just a few quick remarks. I want to thank Council for giving me a few minutes to talk, and I really won't take the full 3 minutes. And you guys know I don't usually work from notes or anything. I just speak from the heart. But I want to thank the retirees and the residents and the resident retirees for showing up both last week and tonight. It's truly important, and I think the impression that's left on council and the mayor is long lasting. Secondly, I want to thank the council for working with the mayor and trying to develop a compromise that might help make things better. I personally am supportive of the task force approach with a lot of the stipulations that have already been talked about, and the other components of the compromises made between council and the mayor, such as the resolution that's supposed to acknowledge that these changes are intended to be one time, and a full and detailed review of the plan design and other economically feasible options, all as part of oversight by council. But I want to be clear that just because I support the initiatives I just mentioned, and I appreciate being given a seat at the table, it does not mean that I think this is right or fair, that retiree healthcare costs are being shifted to the retiree. I'm beyond that. It doesn't change the way I feel. I fully realize the economics involved, the shortages and the budget challenges. You guys know I have a fair amount of budget experience. But like one of the members said before, you have to remember that the retirees are not to blame in any way, shape, or form. I'm not going to point fingers. I know where they should be pointed, but we're not going to point fingers. It's not going to get us anywhere. It's short. It needs to be fixed. It needs to be corrected, and I welcome the opportunity to do it. But remember the 839 retirees, because no matter what, they're getting the short end of the stick to a degree. Okay, they worked hard for that benefit, and they're really an innocent bystander, and that's the truth. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Creech. We have Mr. Adam Farrell.
Thank you for allowing me to speak. Vice President of Local 412 Dearborn Firefighters. Also been an employee for the city of Dearborn since 2001, where I began as a lifeguard, and proud SF4 graduate, so represent SF4 tonight. But real quick, I have a couple questions. One statement I'm going to make first is I know in 2013, the firefighters, we worked with the city and we no longer had new hires getting retiree health care. All bargaining units have done that throughout the years. I don't have the dates for all of them, but that was done in an effort to save money and to prevent the situation we are in tonight, and to give the city relief. So I do have a couple questions for the council, actually 3 questions. I'm a little bit concerned that the September 1st timeline isn't going to be enough time. And if it isn't enough time and the counter proposal from the proposed task force isn't complete, is there going to be some cooperation to see if there's a possible extension for that?
My next question would be, once the counter proposal is submitted and the committee is therefore dissolved as it was explained to us, who would respond if there's any further questions or potential conversation in regards to that proposal, since that committee is then dissolved? And then what measures are going to be put in place to ensure that this is a one-time cut and that this isn't going to be a year-over-year cut for all the retirees moving forward? So thank you for your time. And I also want to say it's a great honor to serve the residents here in the city. And I think most of the firefighters, police, and city employees feel the same sentiment. And I don't want that to get lost in tonight's discussion, but it's been a personal honor to do so. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Farrell. Just to clear up the September 1st, as far as flexibility, there is a lot of scheduling and times where we have open enrollment. We also have to deal with our budget. So I'm sure we're going to be mindful of that date, that all the information is provided in a timely manner, so that would not be a concern. The counter proposal will go to the mayor as well as the council, and will be then evaluated at that time. As far as the the measures continuing, I think the best way to say this is anything done by this council can be undone by a future council. These are the elected body. So I think your safety is that you have to have 4 people up here that agree with any changes or further changes or any modifications at all. And it's our full intent that we're going to find much more ways to grow our city so that we would not be looking for more taxes. But again, this is 5 months, 6 months into the job, so there's a lot going on, but I appreciate that. Next, we have Mr. Nashal AJ.
Hello, and I'd like to thank all the civil servants, police, and the fire people. The last fire person who spoke really touched us all, and thank you for the service to the city. Having said that, the solution needs to be worked with the city council and the mayor to find a solution to the retiree problem. But we as citizens are paying like upwards of $5,000 for a 1,200 square foot home. The current condition does not allow for new taxes. I mean, gas has gone through the roof, and we understand, and we didn't want to see our brothers who've served the city suffer or anybody else. But the residents at the same time are suffering. So cuts need to be made across the board. But we can't pay any more taxes. I mean, it's just beyond belief. A similar home in Canton or in Mount Clemens or in how they cost less, about 60% of taxes of Dearborn. I mean, we're already paying too much. And people need to understand that. We do thank everybody, but everybody understands we're already paying too much. We can't afford to pay anything more. But we really do appreciate everything you guys have done for the city. And thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for the city council. And I'm confident you guys will work together and find the solution to the problem that is, but that does not include raising taxes. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Ms. Hamilton Stokes.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This will only take a moment. I am incredibly grateful. You promised that you would listen. You said you'd listen. You listened. I have a question now. Again, incredibly grateful. You said you'd do it, you did it. The words say you will appoint a representative for myself, police, fire. I want to appoint my own representative. I'm thinking, okay, I know these people 100% better than you do. I know the ones that have the ins and outs of the health plan and have a lot of experience. So I'm asking you for some input on that choice you're about to make, on those representatives for police, fire, and general employees. I'm not asking you to appoint me. I want someone who is supremely qualified to sit at that table with those other 5 people And again, you listened before, and I'm asking you to listen one more time.
Of course, to that question, I would love your input. Anybody that does have input for of the 6 members, we're happy to take it. The reason that the mayor has the majority appointing authority is because of time. We don't have many council meetings between now and July. And so my hope is to actually have the potential members we are planning to appoint by the end of this week so we can begin having constructive meetings by next week. So any suggestions you may have, please provide. I had a similar conversation with fire. And so the suggestions that active fire union members have, I know they have a conversation with their members to also please provide me with their suggestion.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Sorry, Ms. Fadenheimer, sorry. Oh, shoot, how many more?
Good evening, Council President Pro Tem, council members, Mayor Hammoud. I just wanted to begin by thanking everyone for their service. We truly and genuinely appreciate all the sweat and tears and all of the work that you've put into the city as retirees. And I just wanted to mention that that's but one fire and one lens. And from a macro environmental aspect, that's just but one item that's on the mayor's agenda and desk in terms of addressing. In terms of the taxation, that only represents 40% of what actually goes to city services and city government. I will. The other 60% goes to other services. A gentleman before me mentioned Dearborn Public Schools, and not in the most favorable light. Our schools are struggling. Our schools are crumbling. They went for a bond issuance in 2019, and that failed due to the lack of due diligence by the administration on that part of the government. Coming back to city government, as the council knows, I have asked questions about every department of the spending from the former administration without any prejudice, whether it be fire, whether it be police, whether it be our water rates and the inequities in the water rates, the libraries, any department where there is fiscal irresponsibility, that was questioned of the former administration. Now, as far as the council members here and the healthcare costs, I understand that that is very impactful on your daily lives. And we all understand that, the residents understand that, but we're also struggling. If anyone recalls, just 2 days ago, we received a mass text message indicating that there's a flood watch. And in a similar time frame last year, we all woke up to 3 feet of water in our basements. We were flooded, our infrastructure is weakened as a result of the disinvestment in infrastructure for many years. That's something that the mayor has to take on. That's a workload that he has to take on. And that's a much bigger lens than healthcare costs. That's a much bigger lens than library funding. That's a much bigger lens than understanding that the current spending measures that need to be taken into account. And there's a lot of passion in this room. What I invite is every single member in this room to take this fight to the footsteps of Lansing, to take this fight to the footsteps of Washington, D.C., because there is a lot of passion in this room. There's a lot of commitment.
Sorry, your time has expired.
And I ask the people in this room to ask legislative changes at the state and federal level.
Thank you, Ms. Limmer. Thank you. Mr. Nasser Mehsen. Right at you. Chief. Can't get through there.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. President, council members, Mr. Mayor, thank you for being here. I have been living in this city for about 20 years. And when this topic comes up, there is a lot of things that people are expecting from their government and from their council members and from their mayor. We see, for example, the state of the roads, how the services are, the garbage, services. So overall, we have not seen a tangible change to the better when it comes to those services. And yet we come to realize and we come to know that there is going to be an increase in the fiscal responsibility on the people represented by more taxes, which is surprising to all of us and disappointing to all of us. So when we see these things, we come back to the campaign period and we say, okay, what did those ran on? They ran on promises to reduce taxes. Now is the time to deliver those promises. And we want to see those promises acted on. We want to see these promises materialize. And we want to see the talk of the campaign period. We need to come to the walking the talk time. So people, all of you know that we are going through inflation that is not happened in 40 years. Everything is going up. And we want you guys to there is no need, it's needless to say that, but we want a reaction from all of you guys that takes this in consideration for the many thousand people living in this city. So, and that's my message to you. Thank you.
Next, we have Mr. Albert Abbas.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Albert Abbas. I live on 21715 Willoway Road. Thank you to our police and fire who have served honorably for so long. You have saved my life several times as I have a medical condition that has no cure. Been to my house several times. It saddens me to see that we have to ask you to sacrifice a little bit. However, this isn't just about you. This is about everyone. We have all sacrificed for the past 40 years as past administrations have took the city to the cleaners with all the wasteful spending. We have been overpaying on taxes for at least 2 decades, paying 30 to 40% more than more prosperous neighboring cities. We are at that tipping point that we warned everyone about during the BRICS bond. We warned everyone this time would come. I applaud the new administration for coming up with options and solutions where we all sacrifice a little bit instead of losing everything. I applaud the residents that did contribute to candidates they believed will finally make a change. Yes, most of them can afford to write the checks the gentleman earlier talked about, but it's not about them either. It's about the future of our children and giving them an affordable chance to live in this great city. I was born and raised in Dearborn, living in the South End, East End, and now currently in the West End since 1984. I unfortunately am one of the people that the gentleman earlier said doesn't exist. One that is planning on moving out of the city because I simply can't afford it anymore. Our schools are in shambles and our city has been for a long time. At least now we're seeing this administration come up with solutions and options for us to save the city. Again, thank you to this new administration and thank you to all the police and fire that have dedicated their lives to the city. And it does sadden me to see that we all have to sacrifice a little bit, especially you people that have done so much for the city. But again, it's about all of us. It's about giving our children the opportunity to live here. Thank you guys very much.
Next, we have Mr. Walter Anhunt.
Good evening, Council President, Mayor. Thank you for allowing me to speak. I represent the Police Officers Association of Dearborn and the currently 138 men and women that are on non-command positions within the police department. I'm a third-generation police officer in the city of Dearborn. My great-grandfather started in 1928, worked till 1970 when my father hired on. and worked until 2003, where my sister hired on and myself later. And coming up soon, we'll have 100 years of consecutive service here in the city of Dearborn, and we're proud of that. It's such a blessing to be a police officer in the city of Dearborn. There isn't a better community to work in the state, in the world. I'm so happy to be here. I'm happy that you guys always have our back, our residents. So I just want to say thank you to the council members that are here, all of you tonight, and the mayor. I know oftentimes we speak late at night, and you have to hear my kids cry in the background, and I hear the mayor's daughter crying in the background, and we're trying to iron out these problems. And I know none of you wish this upon any of us. I just hope that going forward we can be reasonable when we select this task force, that we can have a hand in who's selected mayor. And I know somebody's addressed that already. It's very important to us that we have the people that understand this problem the most, that can try to develop solutions that are good for the residents and good for the police officers, good for the firemen and the general employees. I want to also acknowledge the retirees that are in the room tonight, many of whom I know. I feel like I'm in a room full of giants. These are people that I heard amazing stories about growing up, doing heroic things, and people that I saw handing out the ice at homecoming and work in those areas. And I'm so proud to be, again, a resident and be among all of you. So I hope that we can come up with a solution that the residents find appropriate. And I want to acknowledge also that the police officers have made sacrifices, including our staff, cutting our staffing. You know, the will of the people is that we have 231 police officers, and currently we're like at 170 something. And that's through our negotiation, because we recognize there's sacrifices that have to be made. So it's not that we're unwilling to make sacrifices. I just hope that we can find reasonable solutions for these problems. So I thank everybody for their time, and have a good night.
Thank you, Mr. Anna. Thank you. Mr. Abdul Sheikh.
Hello. I echo everyone what they said today. My understanding today, we are not against taking out the health insurance, right? We are not taking health insurance benefits from the retiree today, right? We are just asking them to help out sustain the city by contributing small tokens. As you know, we have in Dearborn 108,000 people. Everybody is paying double the money when it comes to food, when it comes to gas, when it comes to insurance. Everybody, and some people paying 2-3 times more. We are talking about 108,000 people. They cannot take any more taxes. We are here not today against retiree. We are here today against the insurance company. We are here to save $6 million. Why we give it to the insurance company? I want to ask, if this is your home, if this is your business, what do you do? Let your conscience be your guide. Do you save $6 million or you give it to the insurance company? We need to be smart. We need to treat the city as our home or our business. So please, I ask the council to think twice and treat the city as your home. And think about 108,000 people who's going to suffer so much if you go ahead and let them pay $6 million. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Sheikh. Next, we have Dr. Mohammed Suba. Yep, we'll give him an opportunity. There's 2 more. Is there any more cards, Mr. Clerk? No. Okay. Okay, just a brief second. Both of these last 2 individuals are outside in the extended area. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for the 2 minutes or so. First, definitely it's a difficult job, being a council member, being accountable for the city residents, and kind of going over the past decade of problems the city had accumulated. So with that being said, I think the residents should be patient. I know I'm being patient. You know, it's going to take a couple of, at least 4 years to correct the problems, to get ourselves to regular taxes. And the budget, I reviewed it. It's manageable, but at the same time, I think the expectation is too much. but definitely, we would definitely not able to do any more than what we've done as far as home taxes. Now, the legacy, issues that the city has, definitely it's something that I recommend the city council approve the budget as is, because the legacy issues on there are not going to go away anytime soon. So again, I thank the city council, I think the mayor, and the city residents for being patient, but it's going to take a couple of days, at least 4 to 8 years to correct the problem. Thank you much.
Thank you very much, Dr. We have one final speaker, Richard, I believe he's coming in, Richard Polonsky. Yes. Thank you.
Hello, Mr. Mayor, Council. My name is Richard Polson. I live at 22141 Francis. I've lived in the city all my life, and I've worked for the city pretty much all my life. I started as a lifeguard, and I went to ordnance officer, some would call it meter maid, and then the fire department. And in between, I was in the Navy. And I would just like to say that all of us here, no matter where we worked, we bargained in good faith for what we thought we would get. We gave up things because police and fire especially knew there were going to be some illnesses and hardships based on our occupation. And as Mr. Lentz said just a few minutes ago, his father committed suicide. So there are many, many hardships that we have to face. And I don't think anybody, any general employee, any city employee who has done their job faithfully should have to face an arbitrary reduction in what we've earned. So I guess that's all I have to say. We earned it, we bargained for it, and I think arbitrary reduction is unconscionable. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Polson. Okay, at this time, this concludes the public comment section. And I'm going to lead off our council. The process here is that each council member, I'm sure, will be addressing their concerns or their thoughts on this current proposed budget. I think it's working. And then at that time, we will move for a vote. And after the vote, we will not have any more discussion, and we will recess for approximately 10 minutes to begin our council meeting. So for myself, I'd like to thank Mr. Kennedy, Mr. Corey, our legal counsel, and all the staff for the multiple amount of meetings that we ran well into late evenings and some early morning hours of the morning. We had at last count over 200 plus requests for information. Myself, I've been on the council now, this is my 9th year. I have always been responsible fiscally and not spending more money than you take in and paying your obligations first. The voters rejected a 10-year temporary millage, which I was the only council member that voted against that when it was proposed at 2.75. I knew that the residents were going to turn it down, and they did. That resulted in a $15.7 million revenue shortfall. Although this budget uses $1.9 million from reserves, I believe it's a great start, and we're headed for a sustainable future for the city of Dearborn. This budget season did not go without large amounts of misinformation, even through institutions that once were thought to be credible. However, I'm charged with making decisions based on the facts, and as the council president elected by the voters. The facts are our libraries will receive no cuts in services, and we were able to reduce the millage by 0.15. This will only reduce the amount of funding going into the reserve account which is currently double the recommended funding level. We are asking our employees and retirees to make changes to their healthcare plans. Current employees will be asked to move to a $2,000 deductible, $4,000 to family. And in the first year, the city will fund 100%, and in the second year, 50% in an HSA account to cover the deductibles. For our retirees, under the age of 65, we move to a $500 deductible with a maximum out-of-pocket of $1,500. Our retirees over the age of 65, we're asking them to move to a $250 deductible with a maximum out-of-pocket of $1,000. All retirees will get an HRA debit card that will be funded 2 years fully upfront to help them pay for these costs that are unexpected. Furthermore, the council will be creating a hardship exemption that will cover the deductibles for those that cannot afford it. This policy change, as some of my fellow residents indicated, will save nearly $6 million in general fund. The task force that we spoke to earlier will also ensure that everybody has a voice at the table. This budget also returns our water rates to a 72% use charge and a 28% mixed methodology back to our residents, which reverts us to the long time method that will benefit approximately 70% of our residents and shifts more system costs to higher users, such as companies that use the water, for their business. This is a very important topic for me, as I had voted 3 times in a row against the previous changes. Dearborn residents care about their public safety. This budget resulted in no cuts to sworn police officers, nor firefighters. The budget sets us on the path for a bright future. I am optimistic that our city's future, with our new created Department of Philanthropy and Grants, bringing in new money to our city without relying on our taxpayers, as well as our new Public Health Department, which is already on the ground assisting families as we speak during these very difficult times. We have had more calls and interest for new business development in the past 5 months than we have had in years. We have more energetic young people working here than ever before. And yes, a lot of them are wearing tennis shoes and colorful socks in their suits. However, their unique ideas have, in a very short time, contributed to putting our city in the right path. Together with my colleagues on council and administration, we will continue to make Dearborn a leader in our state. And at that time, that is my comments on the budget. I'd like to turn it over to Councilman El-Sawafi.
Thank you, Council President. Thank you all for joining us here today. You really could be anywhere in the world, but you're here with us, and that's a clear reflection of your priorities. The most critical role of the city council body is the management of the city budget, as it is our opportunity to safeguard the public trust and the public purse. The budget we are submitting today is an expression of our vision and priorities. A budget is dollars that will be translated into tangible actions. This city budget is an investment in the future of Dearborn. For me, priority number 1 is public safety. This is and will continue to be my number 1 priority. This budget reflects our dedication to keeping our city safe by increasing the presence of sworn police officers on the streets, funding traffic calming measures such as speed humps, and an innovative perspective to enforcement through an enhanced mental health response model that partners with civilian mental health experts. This budget reflects my priorities and the priorities of our residents by providing adequate funding to maintain and potentially expand services to our essential Dearborn libraries, which help grow our local economy, provide free educational resources, and create a safe space that connects all 4 corners of our city. This budget reflects my priorities by making a significant investment in parks and recreation that will grow and improve our city's green space that we've all learned to enjoy and expect. This budget reflects my priorities and the priorities of our residents by properly funding our vector control program, working to address our infrastructure problems, and providing services to take care of all our people. But the reality is that this budget is not all give. This budget does ask for a shared sacrifice and the balancing of priorities of our residents, the needs of our active employees, and the promises made to our retirees. To all our wonderful retirees who reached out, thank you. Your emails, phone calls, and conversations did not go unnoticed. We heard your feedback, we rolled up our sleeves, and we got to work and created a retiree task force that will give you a seat at the table and allow for continued conversations while we keep the city moving forward. Thank you to the public who have been engaged throughout this process. And thank you to Council President Serini for your leadership and all my council colleagues for your sacrifice and hard work, like Councilman Abraham and Mayor Hammoud for the collective work we have done together. And remember, at the end of the day, our success will not be measured by how much we spent, but by how much we accomplished. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Any other of my colleagues like to speak on the budget? Councilman Paris.
Thank you, Council President. Thank you all for being here tonight and people that may be viewing this outside of this room. So a lot of people here that obviously have a very committed interest in what's going on with our city and how we're going to pay for our services and be fair about it. What I first want to say is I thank you to the financial team. I thank you to the mayor. Thank you to my colleagues here on council. We did devote a lot of time to this. We talked a lot, and forgive me, Mayor, I did challenge quite a bit sometimes, and we need to get answers. What I want to say, first of all, though, you know, we may be seeing some people at home. I'm going to just make one short comment here. I think there is very much so, and I'm going to repeat it again, and I've said it in the past. We need to have our committee of the whole, our council meetings, and our budget meetings televised. So not just what we're doing here tonight for our council meeting, but very much so for our transparency purposes. I'd love to see all these meetings televised, and they're not. Let's try to do something about that in the future. I want to go back in time just a little bit. A lot of my colleagues have spoken about the process to get where we are tonight, and as far as coming up with the medical healthcare proposal changes. I just want to give you a little bit of foresight from me as a new council member. I'm 5 months on the job. I have done nothing to earn your trust yet, other than what I've set on a campaign trail. And for all of you out here that do know me, that gives you a little bit about a perspective about the type of person I am and being very much so committed. When I have my nose to the grindstone, you know, I try to come up with ideas and try to collaborate, try to cooperate, and try to come down with decisions. I'm kind of a person that's into policy and procedures. I've been that way operationally for all my professional career. But, you know, I have a concern. First of all, I believe that medical proposal came too quick. And I can recall back on March 29th and April 5th, we had our first couple budget meetings. I had a meeting with the mayor on April 12th. That is the first time that I heard about the proposal for the changes in the medical, you know, for our retirees. That's a little bit concerning to me because we had to go forward with our budgetary meetings and not really knowing a lot about what was being presented to us. And then how do I, as a council member, represent you and give you information as far as these medical benefits? So I think what we did is kind of put the cart before the horse, and we didn't go ahead and inform properly our retirees and our active employees what was going on in the city. I think we had the inability to adequately roll out information about the healthcare proposal, even though it developed into an urgent need for clarity, transparency, and inclusion in the process. There was an awful lot of misinformation out there quite fairly right in the very beginning. I had all sorts of calls thinking that healthcare was going to be taken away, that the OPEB funding was down to 10, 15% funded, which far from it. I had a lot of phone calls and emails also about our library, which was a lot of erroneous information was going out. I know that this council and this administration worked very hard on this budget, but still there was a lot of misinformation that went out. I asked personally this council, and I got an opinion from our corporation council about separation of the healthcare portion of this budget from the rest of the budget so it could be dealt with separately. And legally, I found out that we're not able to do that, but I did inquire. I asked for a delay in the implementation of the employee healthcare until next year's budget to provide sufficient time to thoroughly review and bring retirees and active employees into the process. The mayor has a phase 1 and a phase 2 portion of the budget. Parts of a several-year budget layout is presented in the budget documents. I'd like to put the proposed healthcare into phase 2, not do it this year, but wait for the delay for another year. We need to take care of the retirees who have little means to address some of these increases. And I know about the hardship. It was brought up by one of our other council members too, and to the credit of the mayor, he did bring forward a means for the hardship cases to be looked at. And so we understand that. In a person 85 years old at home that's got 12 prescriptions and has, a husband that has passed on, and now the responsibility is on that individual. That's a hard pill to swallow. And I totally get it. I understand that. I value our current employees and the retiree sacrifices both. The way you treat and value your employees will retain and even help to attract new applicants. There's a lot of complaints out there about our city services. But I'll tell you what, we're bringing some of these services in-house. We had a lot of social media recently about one of our parks with overgrown grass. We've had complaints about trees that are left unattended that we can't cut down. That is not the fault of this administration. That's the fault of what's going on everywhere. You can't get workers. And we have had contractors, even the trees. We had a $700,000 contract to have people come into the city and help us remove the trees. They couldn't do it. We upped the contract to $1.4 million. We still couldn't get them to complete the contract. And now we're looking to do some of these services in-house. So I do commend this council. I totally commend our employees who are going well above and beyond to go ahead and still effectuate some of these services under the leadership of the mayor and some of the directors that we have. It's unbelievable what they're accomplishing. What concerns me, though, is that we don't have an alternative plan that has been offered or discussed. I know I've had some of my colleagues that don't agree with me, but I'm a real proponent of having use of some of the ARPA funds. You know, we have $23.6 million in the bank right now, and we were expecting another $23.6 million to come into the coffers relatively soon. I would have thought that it would have been here by now. Hopefully it is going to come. Look what's going on in our federal government as far as some of the problems that we're having in the federal government. I sure hope we're going to get that money because we can make use of it. One thing I do want to make mention, though, is we have an option to be able to take care of our budget needs by going through ARPA, because if many of you are not aware of, we can go ahead with revenue loss that's attributable to our ARPA. We can get the refunds for that, or get it back from ARPA funds that we can directly say that it's attributable to COVID. You know, just in the 2 years of that COVID, we've got $42 million of lost revenue that very easily putting in for some of those funds, it would be easily approved because that's one of the big purposes for the ARPA to begin with. I brought forth during the budget, and a couple of my colleagues were agreeable to it. I don't know what the results are going to be. We have a $1.1 million fire truck that has a lifespan of 12 years, and then we take it out of service as a spare that'll last 15 years then. $1.1 million could be used from ARPA to pay for that. Got another 13 patrol vehicles to replace the fleet. That is $700,000. ARPA funds could be taking care of that. There's a number of other things. What I will give credit to this administration, though, grants and philanthropy, as of this last week, and I'm sure it's probably increased since, we have got $132 million worth of grants that we have applied for already. You know, if you get a portion of those grants returned in just the short time, the 5 months of this administration already, that is a huge plus. And that could alleviate some of the problems that we have in the city for years to come. We need to supplement now, if we're going to go forward with some of these benefit changes, and I'm going to end here real quickly. If we need to go forward with the proposal, I got to start thinking about our benefits administration under the finance department. We're going to need people to help, you know, the 1,100, 1,200 total employees that are going to be asking a lot of questions. And you have questions. I've had questions. If I have a lot of questions, you know, I can only imagine what you're doing and what you're thinking on a daily basis, how this is going to affect me. So what I'm going to say at this particular time, you can probably say or see how I'm going to vote on this budget, but we'll wait for everybody else to talk. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Councilman Parrish. Councilwoman Herrick.
Thank you, Council President. I'd like to thank my colleagues on council for the comments that they have made, because I think their comments really do represent where all of us have been and what we've been thinking about through this whole budget process and these many meetings that we've had. But I really want to thank the people that have been attending the meetings or calling us or emailing us or meeting with us, or the mayor, and the thoughts that you've shared, the recommendations you've shared, your experiences as living here, as running businesses here. But looking around the room, it's interesting to see the representation of everyone who's here. We've got the leaders who are making decisions today. We've got the leaders who brought to us, and I commend Mayor Hammoud and his team for the budget that they did bring to us for approval, the creativity that went into it, the deep research, the proposals, especially the healthcare. Mr. Paris said, Councilman Paris called it the cart before the horse a bit, that we didn't have more of a heads up about what was coming regarding the healthcare changes for current employees and the retirees. And I know that the retirees certainly feel that way, that they would have liked to have had a little bit more time to give input and see how that's going to affect them. But also in this room, we have the current decision makers. We have the people that made Dearborn what it is today, those retirees who are sitting here. And I give them so much credit. The firefighters, the police officers, the DPW workers, the finance folks, the attorneys that are here, those who made the decisions, and those who worked at the pools and the parks over the years. Those are our legacy, and they're our future. When we're talking about the taxpayers, the homeowners who want to see that those amenities remain for their children to enjoy and their grandchildren to enjoy, it's always a difficult challenge to balance the costs and investing in our future. And I think, again, that our mayor has really done a good job of trying to do that, to lay the foundation for going forward for the next generation. I thank those of you who've come to all of our budget meetings and made the recommendations. The mayor said that the healthcare proposal that's in place right now, that's being proposed for retirees, incorporates some of the suggestions of retirees. For example, he told me that the healthcare debit card that's going to be preloaded for a couple of years to help offset those expenses in the initial years of the new plans, as well as the hardship exemption. We have yet to see exactly how could be put into place, but it was something that was suggested by retirees. And I think that is a testimony to, as Ms. Hamilton Stokes said, he's willing to listen and negotiate. You know, not every suggestion is doable, but it takes a collective group to come up with the best suggestions and the best ideas. And that's where I thank my colleagues on council, Councilman Al-Swafi and Councilman Abraham and Councilwoman Burns worked this weekend on developing the proposal for the task force to come together and with the deadline, the early deadline of September 1st, to come together to bring suggestions for how else could we save $6 million in the budget, other than the proposal that the mayor has brought forward with the healthcare changes for retirees. So I thank them for working together with some of the retirees to bring that forward. I'm pleased that even with a 0.1, I'm pleased that we can reduce just a little bit the tax burden on our taxpayers by 0.15 mils. Yet the library will remain fully funded. Everything that they asked for in their budget for this year is fully funded, and more than $2 million remains in their reserves for future projects, because we know there are some. There's a library that needs a new roof, for example, and they need to do some strategic planning of what the library is going to do going forward after having the major renovations they went through over the past couple years, and being innovative and being more than just books on shelves. It's a gathering place for collaboration between students and business people and community members. And it's a resource that you can't get just by Googling online. You can go and ask experts at the library for books and resources to help do school projects or to build a business. So I'm proud of our library and that it will remain fully funded with the budget that we have here proposed here today. So with that said, again, thank you to everybody who's been a part of making Dearborn what it is now and what it's going to be for the future, and giving us the opportunity to serve you. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Anybody else from my colleagues? Councilman Hammoud?
Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for being here. As I've said before many times, participation in our democracy is critical. And I know I take public participation very seriously, and I appreciate all the input that we've received in the past 6 months as we put this budget together. So in government, we often use terms like fixing a structural deficit, and sometimes I get asked what exactly that means. So as I'm sure you've all heard, but I'm going to go over it a little bit. Last November, the voters declined the supplemental operating millage, essentially telling us and the new administration that we need to make changes down to the charter mandated tax level in order to sustain the city using the current budget and revenue that we have from our tax dollars. Without that supplemental operating millage, we are forced to do more with less, and we have been working tirelessly since the beginning of this administration to begin delivering on that mandate from the voters. My goal was to provide the best value for our residents and businesses for their tax dollars and continue making Dearborn a great place to call home. While we've been forced to make hard cuts, it means we're looking forward and we're no longer allowing the city to gamble with our future. This is not the ideal budget that I would have liked to see, but this seemed to be the most viable alternative considering the issues facing us and what money we have to work with. We still have many challenges to tackle, like mental health, drug addiction, flooding, aging infrastructure, and rising costs for everyone. I look forward to continuing to work with this council and this administration to find solutions to these and the many other issues that we are facing at this time. Thank you again for your participation, and I look forward to continuing to work with all of you to find solutions for our great city. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Hammoud. Okay, this Councilwoman Burns.
Thank you, Council President. I want to start by just thanking everyone who's in the room tonight. To our retirees, thank you so much for your service. And I want to thank everyone who has reached out, whether those are in-person meetings, email, phone calls. I really appreciate the conversation. I think the participation in our government on the day-to-day and particularly during budget season is so critical. And I hope that folks will continue to engage with us. This budget season has been very challenging for me, not just as a council member, but also as a daughter of a retiree. And I want to speak specifically to the proposed retiree healthcare changes. Certainly, there are a multitude of other elements within the budget, some of which my colleagues have spoken to quite eloquently, so I won't repeat what they've already stated. But I really do want to focus on this issue because for me, it has been incredibly challenging. And to say that I take, these decisions to heart would be a tremendous understatement. They always say that it's the people that make the place. And that could not be more true for the city of Dearborn. I always say that Dearborn is so much more than a city. It really is a community. You all are part of that community. Our nearly 110,000 residents are part of that community. And so I take all of the decisions that I make, that this body makes, all the changes that we might implement very seriously. I really do. I want you to know that I'm committed to doing what's right for everyone in this room, everyone in this city, now and into the future. For me, that means supporting our retirees by ensuring that this task force, which I'm very happy to have worked with some of my colleagues on, happy to see that support from this body and the administration, making sure that that task force is not a fluff piece. I'm going to be very blunt on that. That is absolutely not what I want to see, and I have faith and respect in this body and our administration to feel confident that they feel the same. I want to make sure that this task force has the people and the resources it needs to be successful, to really dig in, do some of this work, and propose other alternatives to help move us forward as a collective and as a city and as a team. And I really want to make sure it's stated that I think for this entire team, for the city on the whole, the goal is for retiree healthcare to be funded in perpetuity. I want to be very clear on that. I don't know if that's been stated yet tonight. That is the goal. We want to make sure that any decisions we make, that any decisions that the task force makes are rooted in that philosophy and that goal. That is critical. I'll speak for myself. I want to make sure that all of our retirees, folks who have already retired into this system and folks who have yet to retire into this system, have everything that they need in the long term. That is an absolute must. And so you have my word, and I will be really, I think, monitoring this task force very closely. I'll participate in any way that is appropriate. That's really important to me. So I want you to know that I'm speaking from my heart. Again, as a council member, as a resident of this city, and especially as a daughter of a retiree. That's very important to me. We've talked about the hardship exemption. We've talked about costs being fully covered for the first 2 years. But again, I really want folks to know that this task force is meant to be real. It's meant to make sure that our retirees and some of our active employees as well who will retire into the system have a real seat at the table, a real voice in this process. That is critical. So I want you to know that. Again, I'm speaking from the heart. I thank everyone for being here tonight. I encourage you to continue to engage with us throughout this process as conversations, not only around retiree healthcare move forward, but all of our city services, our budget, all of these things that we want to bring forth to ensure that Dearborn continues to be an incredible place to live and work. So that's my goal. I thank you all for being here. I'm always available to you. Please reach out to me. I want to talk to you. I want to hear your thoughts and your opinions because you are the city. You are why we're here. We're elected to serve you and to do right by you now and again in perpetuity. So I want to make sure that's clear. Thank you all again. Thank you to my colleagues in the administration. I look forward to continuing to work with everyone for the betterment of Dearborn. So thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Abraham.
Thank you, Council President. Thank you, everyone, for being patient as we bring this meeting to a conclusion. Many of the retirees out here that are sitting here and spoke, I know firsthand from many years serving them as a council person and developed personal relationships with most of them, having spent so much time in these meeting rooms together. Couple things come to mind for me. I don't have a speech writer like the councilman does, so I'm going to wing it here. I sit up here, and I've said this at the last several meetings. I believe my role is to reflect our community's priorities. And there are lots of them. And unfortunately, at times, I think this body, the 7 of us that were elected to do this job, struggle with deciphering how to rank the priorities of our community, our people, the people that speak, and those that are silent at times. At the same time, we have to recognize that the people of this community elected a new mayor, a new administration for progress and change. The vote was clear. It's already been stated, the ballot question to create a supplemental millage at 2.75 mils was not approved. And so that's what we're left with. With that challenge, I always reflect back to my home, and I have a little post-it note that I've kept that says progress, not perfection. And that's what we're all struggling with today. These are tough choices that affect every one of you and every one of us. We have to live with these decisions, and it's very difficult. I've been through some really tough budgets, post 9/11, through the Great Recession, the pandemic, and now losing 3.5 mils with a single ballot question being eliminated, almost $15 million in revenue. Police, fire, you've heard it all. We've all campaigned on public safety. We do believe that is the reflection of our community. But something has to give, and I'm not sure what all the alternatives shake out. We really, as Councilman Paris spoke to earlier, I wish we had more time to explore all the options. And with that, that's why the committee is going to be created. I know there were questions about what that will mean, and I think you have to just know how serious all of us are taking this and that your voice will be heard. And I think that, to me, is the most important thing, that all the retirees have to be heard, that have to have a reflection of this in this administration, in this city council, and you will. And I promise you that if what's being proposed goes forward and it doesn't work the way it's designed to work, we will be back here next year or maybe sooner to fix it. And I give you my word on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, at this time.
Council President,
Yes, Mayor.
if I may.
Absolutely, go ahead.
First and foremost, I just want to thank everybody for being out here. We've heard from many people over the last 6 months. And frankly, we began work not in January, but in November. Upon the success of the election, we put together a transition team, and we began interviewing every director that was exiting in December, talking about the ensuing deficit that we inherited walking into the doors in January. And so we really wasted no time in getting to work to try to come up with a proposal that balances 3 groups of individuals: our residents, our retirees, and our active employees. But when you walk in and you open up the books, you're able to see everything in real time. And you're able to explore all the decision-making that's happened over the last 20 years. When we opened the books, we walked in, we had a $22 million structural deficit and a $28 million overall deficit. And when you talk about structural deficit, the only solution is structural. You have to change the way in which you operated. Now, I know there has been much conversation regarding the failure of a supplemental millage back in November. But it's also important to note, even with that additional millage, the city's expenses still surpassed its revenues. So even at the point in which we as a city levied the highest number of mills we have historically, our expenses were never contained. And in the era in which we are in, where residents no longer want to pay, it was a bad situation waiting to happen, and it occurred. And so when we got to work, first and foremost, we went through operationally. what can we do to produce cost savings? And we brought that forward. We insourced some contracting. We found some cost savings in personnel within our current organizational structure across the city. I amended my own healthcare benefits and negotiating right now with active employees to take a $2,000, $4,000 for myself, all my appointees throughout the city, to find a way where we also are making long-term decision-making to help assist the prosperity for the future of the city. And even with that decision-making, with $22 million deficit, we addressed about 13 million of it. We still had about 9 or so remaining. And with the budget that I proposed, we're still short about 1.9 million, which we're hoping in a phase 2 element that we actually address for the long term of the city. And so the retiree benefit changes were not made in callous. The changes that were suggested for those above 65, a $250 deductible per individual, for those under 65, a $500 deductible per individual. We took the suggestions of many retirees, because I took every meeting that was ever requested of me, of the retiree associations and various retiree members, as well as presenting before a group of 300 roughly retirees at the Fort Performing Arts Center, to pre-fund those deductibles for the first 2 years and create a hardship program that I don't believe any other city has, where anybody who can't afford it won't pay it, just to be simply put. And we're excited that the opportunity to have this task force to explore what alternative is there, because we have to achieve the savings if we want to move forward. Now, many people say there might be an alternative. The alternatives that we came up with is if you want to achieve 6 million in savings, from an employee perspective, we know that the majority of our dollars go towards police, fire, and retiree healthcare. And most of that is locked up behind the charter, and you can't touch it. That's about 78% of our budget. If you want to find 6 million in savings, I would have to lay off 60 individuals from my general employees today. A lot of folks said you can cut services. You can't cut services without cutting people. That's the only way to do it. And that was something that we wanted to avoid. And so I'm proud that in this budget, we didn't lay anybody off, which is an important safety net for many individuals. We have a lot of priorities that we began to address, be it the vector and rat problem, be it investment in the things that used to make Dearborn great. I've heard much dialogue about all the assets that Dearborn has. It's not a great asset if you've disinvested in it for over a decade. The rock wall is great at the Fort Performing Arts Center, maybe when I was growing up, but it hasn't changed since. Camp Dearborn was great when I was growing up, but take a look at it now, where the canteen can't even operate an open flame because they haven't updated that facility in so long. And Tent Village had to come down because the wood was purchased in the 70s and the green canvas was purchased in the 90s, and we haven't replaced it since. So at some point, you also have to make the strategic decision as a city for how do you actually invest for the future. This budget was not easy to put together by any means. We consulted experts that I can get a hold of throughout the region, not only within the city. We leaned on individuals who used to work here. We leaned on individuals who had experience in similar situations across the state. And frankly, I made some calls across the country talking about what opportunities there might be. And so if there is an alternative over the next 2.5 months, you have my commitment that the senior staff of my administration, including myself, will be at that table to explore what other options there may be. If there are tweaks that can be made, we're happy to make them. We want to do what's best, again, for our retirees, for our active employees, and as well for our residents. But what's important to highlight, we talk about making the minimum payment towards retiree healthcare. The city has not done so since 2007. Short funding it to the tune of $60 million since then. What's important for me to keep our promise is to ensure that this benefit remains not only for current retirees, but for those who have yet to retire. If we were not to make structural changes in this budget, you would short fund that payment more than just what's traditionally been done. And you would actually jeopardize and risk the benefit in its entirety. And that was something that I could not jeopardize, which is why we came forward with a proposal as we did. Are there ways to communicate better and do things better? I'll be the first to say there always is. Am I a perfect individual? I am far from it. You can ask my wife. There's a lot that I can do different. But I remember in my inauguration speech, I asked forgiveness before I ever assumed the role, because I knew that mistakes would be made and none of my decisions would be perfect. But I do take the weight of each decision I make seriously. I'm a lifelong resident of the city. I left for a few years for school and I came right back because there's nothing like this community. I'm raising my daughter in the city and I'm hoping she buys a house right next door so she doesn't go anywhere. And that's the pathway that I believe we set the city on with the decisions that we make in this budget. I'm not gonna go around parading the success of passing of a budget if it moves through. I'm gonna go around taking very seriously the power that we hold, that has been bestowed upon us by the residents of the city, to try to make the best decision that we can for the most people that we can, do the most good for the most people, and hope and pray that we put our city on a pathway to succeed for generations to come. So I thank you all for participating. I thank my team. I should have started with that, but I thank my team for the long, countless hours, as well as this council for their partnership. A lot of back and forth, many requests for information, but it's a part of the process. And so thank you all for being here this evening.
All right, at this time, I would entertain an offer to adopt the budget offered by Councilman Al Sawafi.
Support.
Supported by Councilman Hammoud. Mr. Clerk, can we please have a roll call vote?
Yes. Councilmember Hammoud,
Yes.
Councilmember Abraham,
Yes.
Councilmember Paris,
No.
Councilmember El Sawafi,
Yes.
Councilmember Herrick,
Yes.
Councilmember Burns,
Yes.
Council President Sereni.
Yes.
At 6 yeas, the budget passes.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. At this time, if there's no additional business, the meeting will be adjourned for 10 minutes and we will begin our council meeting. Motion to adjourn is by Councilwoman Burns, supported by Councilman Al Sawafi. We are